Shame is an incredibly diminishing and disempowering experience. And somehow it seems that shame and sex often go hand in hand. Even just thinking about sex or having a conversation about sex can be shame-inducing. Or even with our clothing, showing a little bit too much cleavage or a little bit too much leg or a little bit too much butt even can bring on a lot of shaming looks and comments. We can even feel shame watching sex and our parents happen to walk in. Ew! And we can definitely feel shame while we're having sex. And it doesn't even have to be some complicated bondage ritual or anal sex. It can be just the odd comment or the odd look at the wrong moment can easily lead us to feel deep shame in the act of sex. But what actually is shame? Well, shame is the most icky, uncomfortable, and toxic feeling that as humans we can actually experience. It's a feeling of wanting to hide, of being not good enough. Whether we've actually done something wrong, we can feel wrong. We contract inside of us, we feel diminished, and we often want to disappear. We definitely want to hide, and we definitely don't want to be seen when we're feeling shame. Shame can totally derail our state of being. It disconnects us from our bodies, it makes us go blank, it makes us feel numb, and it makes us feel dumb. It readily brings on negative self-judgments and helps us feel less than in ourselves, totally hopeless and totally powerless. But wait a minute, didn't I just say that sex and shame are often related? And isn't sex about feeling the most amazing, the most wonderful feelings that we're capable of? Feeling connected, feeling pleasure, even ecstasy and bliss? It's because shame can most easily show up when we're the most vulnerable, the most exposed, and the most human. Sex is also the place that carries the most confusing and negative judgments about all the things on this planet. And this is because, largely, that sex is also about power. Sex can sell anything from ice creams to cars. It can bring down governments and also almost bring down religions. People who are in control, governments, churches, societies, cultures, even our parents, like to shame us about our sexuality because it keeps us in control. When we're feeling shame, we're not feeling powerful. We get confusing messages about sex, like, sex is dirty, save it for someone that you love. Or our genitals are dirty, that's where we get our pleasure from. Or even just saying no. It's never about saying yes. It's also because sex, in its true nature, is one of the few places that we can directly experience our divinity, where we can experience true bliss and ecstasy that is about much more than just physical pleasure. Bliss, for example, is an experience of pure happiness and a contentment like heaven on earth. And ecstasy is a deep letting go of ourselves, an expansion of ourselves, an uplifting of our souls that allows us access to the language of ourselves, an experience of connection with all there is. In blissful ecstasy, we feel most innocent, we feel most beautiful, we feel free of any egoic concerns. We are most powerful with a deep intuitive understanding of what the world is, and even an understanding or experience of what God is, whatever that may or may not mean to us. Yet shame is so normal to us, we often have no idea of these other experiences, have no understanding or concept that they may even be possible. When I talk about bliss, often what I get is blank looks in return. This is because shame starts very early in our lives. It happens the first time that we feel different in the way that we look, in the way that we feel, think, or the way that we are, that is different from those around us. And we're not validated or supported in that difference. Inside of ourselves, we cut off from that shamed part because we want to avoid feeling that discomfort. And in that cutting off of ourselves, we become less whole. We become more numb, more dissociated, and less alive, less vital. We don't even notice it because it feels so normal. We might look to find this feeling of bliss or this feeling of ecstasy in things like alcohol or risky behaviors, but they're not the places necessarily where we find them. Most of us have a lot of problems feeling even a little bit of physical pleasure, let alone some of these other more deeper, higher states. But it's ultimately what most of us are really looking for, something that's deeply fulfilling and satisfying. And is even better than feeling good. These states of ecstasy and bliss help to heal ourselves of our shame. You could almost say that ecstasy and bliss are the opposites of shame. So how can we experience more bliss and ecstasy? Well, we can start by giving ourselves permission to experience more sensual pleasure, physical pleasure, just by taking time to smell the roses or pat our cat or to stroke our loving partner or even stroke ourselves, just to be able to give ourselves permission to feel good. You can start too by having a shame-busting mindset, by not being willing to tolerate it anymore, by noticing when we're feeling shame and not resisting it, but allowing it, breathing into it, seeing that we're in control of it and actually letting it go, using our breath to help it leave our bodies. And then celebrating by having some pleasure or enjoyment experience, letting us know that we really do deserve to feel this good. We can also play with developing a bliss and ecstasy-seeking mindset. And by that, I mean taking time to appreciate a beautiful sunset, or giggling on the floor with your small child, or developing a meditative process which can open us to experiences of bliss through meditation. Most importantly, we can play with experiencing ecstasy and bliss by slowing down in our sensual pleasures. And by playing with our breath, we can open to more bliss and ecstasy by slowing down in our pleasure. Often in pleasure, we're trying to push ourselves so hard to get to the end that we don't actually really experience it. We're trying to push it out of ourselves. And this is definitely not an ecstasy and bliss-seeking mindset. The more we breathe in pleasure, the more open and expanded we feel. The more we breathe life into our bodies and into our pleasures. Breathing more deeply helps our minds to shut off. It helps us to let go of expectations, be in the moment, and let our souls intuitively speak. So cultivate your shame-busting mindset. The next time that you're slowly enjoying your sensual or sexual pleasure, and you hear that little voice inside of you that says, no, I don't think you deserve any more. Tell it, no, you don't need that protection anymore. You actually are here and you're ready to own your pleasure. You're ready to own the most extraordinary pleasure and bliss and ecstasy that you're capable of. Cultivate your bliss and ecstasy-seeking mindset by playing with your breath in pleasure. Slower, deeper, shorter, faster, closed-mouthed, open-mouthed, all sorts of different ways of breathing and seeing how your body responds. And being open to something more, something different than you've experienced in the past by making different choices. And if you would like to hear more from my videos, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button below, and I look forward to seeing you in your inbox each Sunday.